The contract. In the vast expanse of the Andromeda Galaxy, Zarak lounged in his sleek obsidian spacecraft, basking in the glow of another successful elimination. The Vrexian diplomat's lifeless body still lay cooling on some distant moon, and the hefty payment had already been transferred to Zarak's encrypted accounts. As the galaxy's most feared assassin, Zarak had built a reputation that struck terror into the hearts of even the most powerful beings across countless star systems. A soft chime interrupted his moment of self-satisfaction. Zarak's four eyes blinked in rapid succession, focusing on the holographic display that materialized before him. An incoming transmission, origin unknown. Intriguing. "Speak," Zarak commanded, his gravelly voice echoing through the ship's empty corridors. A distorted figure appeared, shrouded in shadows and electronic interference. "Greetings, Zarak. Your skills are required for a matter of utmost importance and discretion." Zarak's upper lip curled, revealing a row of needle-sharp teeth. "My skills are always available, for the right price." "Money is no object," the figure replied. "The target is of critical importance, and failure is not an option." "You waste your breath," Zarak scoffed. "I do not fail." The figure nodded. "Very well. Your target is a human." Zarak's phosphorescent eyes widened slightly, the only indication of his surprise. In all his centuries of operation, he had never been contracted to eliminate a human. The species was considered barely more than vermin by most galactic civilizations, primitive, short-lived, and confined to their unremarkable solar system. "A human," Zarak repeated, unable to keep the curiosity from his voice. "What threat could a human possibly pose to warrant my involvement?" The figure leaned forward, its featureless face filling the holographic display. "This human possesses knowledge that could shift the balance of power in the galaxy. Dr. Ilara Chen must be eliminated before she can complete her research." Zarak's interest was piqued. He had heard whispers of humanity's rapid technological advancements in recent years, but had dismissed them as exaggerations. Perhaps there was more to these creatures than met the eye. "Send me the details," Zarak said, his mind already racing with possibilities. "I'll depart for Earth immediately." The figure nodded once more before the transmission cut out. Moments later, a data packet arrived, containing everything Zarak needed to know about his target and the defenses he would face on Earth. As Zarak's ship set a course for the Sol system, he immersed himself in studying humanity. Their history was a tapestry of conflict and innovation, resilience in the face of overwhelming odds, and an uncanny ability to adapt. It was almost impressive. Zarak shook his head, dispelling such thoughts. Humans were prey, nothing more. Their advancements were likely stolen or stumbled upon by sheer luck. This Dr. Chen would fall like all his other targets, quickly and without mercy. Days later, Zarak's ship slipped undetected into Earth's orbit. His advanced cloaking technology rendered him invisible to the primitive human sensors that feebly scanned the space around their planet. As he prepared for planetfall, Zarak couldn't shake a nagging feeling in the back of his mind. Something about this contract felt different. The assassin pushed the thought aside as he donned his adaptive camouflage suit. The nanotechnology would allow him to blend seamlessly into any environment, even mimicking human appearance if necessary. With his weapons concealed and his ship set to standby mode, Zarak initiated the teleportation sequence. In a shimmer of energy, Zarak materialized in a dark alley on the outskirts of New Beijing, the sprawling megacity that served as the heart of human scientific advancement. The assassin took a moment to acclimate to Earth's atmosphere and gravity, his enhanced physiology quickly adapting to the new conditions. As Zarak stepped out onto the bustling street, he was immediately assaulted by a cacophony of sights, sounds, and smells. Hover vehicles zipped overhead, while countless humans hurried along the crowded sidewalks. Holographic advertisements flickered on every surface, hawking products in a dizzying array of languages. For the first time in centuries, Zarak felt a twinge of uncertainty. The level of technology on display was far beyond what he had expected. He had assumed he would be infiltrating a primitive society, but the scene before him rivaled some of the most advanced worlds he had visited. Shaking off his doubts, Zarak activated his heads-up display, overlaying his vision with a map of the city and the location of his target. Dr. Elara Chen's laboratory was housed in a towering skyscraper at the city's center, its upper floors disappearing into the clouds above. As Zarak made his way through the crowded streets, he eavesdropped on conversations, gathering intelligence and refining his understanding of human speech patterns. He would need to blend in perfectly if he hoped to get close to his target. Hours passed as Zarak conducted his initial reconnaissance. He circled Dr. Chen's building, noting security checkpoints, patrol patterns, and potential points of entry. To his growing frustration, the defenses appeared far more robust than anticipated. Automated drones buzzed overhead, their sensors sweeping for any sign of threat. Armed guards in powered exosuits stood at attention, their weapons humming with barely contained energy. As night fell, Zarak retreated to a nearby rooftop to regroup and plan his next move. He activated his long-range scanner, probing the laboratory's defenses for any weaknesses. To his shock, the building was enveloped in an energy field that defied his most advanced hacking attempts. For the first time in his long, bloody career, Zarak felt a glimmer of doubt. These humans were not the primitive creatures he had been led to believe. Their technology was formidable, their defenses nearly impenetrable. What kind of research could Dr. Chen be conducting to warrant such protection? As Zarak pondered his next move, a priority alert flashed across his heads-up display. His ship's sensors had detected an incoming transmission, aimed directly at his location. Impossible. No one should have been able to detect his presence. With a growing sense of unease, Zarak opened the communication channel. A stern human face appeared before him, its eyes blazing with determination. "Alien assassin," the human said, his voice unwavering. "We know you're here. We know why you've come. This is your one and only warning. Run. Earth is not your playground, and Dr. Chen is not your prey. Leave now or face the consequences of underestimating humanity." The transmission cut out, leaving Zarak in stunned silence. For the first time in centuries, the galaxy's deadliest assassin felt a chill run down his spine. These humans knew he was here. They were prepared for him. As sirens began to wail in the distance and the city's defenses kicked into high gear, Zarak realized that this contract would be like nothing he had ever faced before. The hunt had begun, but he was no longer certain who was the hunter and who was the prey. With a grudging respect for his adversaries growing in his chest, Zarak melted into the shadows of New Beijing. The real challenge had only just begun, and he had a feeling that his encounter with humanity would change everything he thought he knew about his place in the galaxy. First contact. Zarak crouched in the shadows of a towering skyscraper, his adaptive camouflage blending seamlessly with the cold steel and glass. The warning from the human security forces still echoed in his mind, a challenge he couldn't ignore. No prey had ever detected him so quickly, let alone dared to threaten him. These humans were proving to be far more intriguing than he had anticipated. As the first light of dawn broke over New Beijing's horizon, Zarak decided on a new approach. Direct infiltration of Dr. Chen's laboratory was clearly too risky. He needed to understand his target better, to find the weaknesses in her routine and the chinks in her armor. Activating his holographic disguise, Zarak transformed into the appearance of a nondescript human male. He had spent hours studying the city's inhabitants, perfecting every detail from the way they walked to the subtle expressions that flitted across their faces. Now he stepped out onto the bustling morning streets, just another face in the crowd. The assassin made his way to a small cafe across from Dr. Chen's research facility. He ordered a beverage, a bitter, caffeine-laden concoction that humans seemed to revere, and settled in to observe. Hours passed as Zarak watched the comings and goings of scientists, security personnel, and support staff. As midday approached, a commotion near the building's entrance caught Zarak's attention. A sleek black vehicle pulled up, and out stepped a woman whose presence seemed to electrify the air around her. Dr. Ilara Chen had arrived. Zarak's enhanced vision zoomed in on his target. Dr. Chen was younger than he had expected, her face bright with intelligence and purpose. She moved with a confident grace, greeting her colleagues warmly as she made her way into the building. The assassin couldn't help but notice the respect and admiration in the eyes of those around her. For the next several days, Zarak shadowed Dr. Chen, learning her routines and habits. He marveled at her dedication, often working late into the night on her mysterious project. The more he observed, the more his curiosity grew. What could this human possibly be working on that warranted such secrecy and protection? On the 5th day of his surveillance, Zarak finally saw an opportunity. Dr. Chen left her lab alone, heading for a nearby park. The assassin followed at a discreet distance, his hand hovering near the concealed weapon at his side. This could be his chance to eliminate the target and complete his contract. As Dr. Chen settled onto a bench, pulling out a data pad, Zarak moved in. He was mere steps away when a voice called out, freezing him in his tracks. "Dr. Chen, I hoped I'd find you here." A tall, muscular man approached, his bearing unmistakably military despite his civilian clothes. Zarak's instincts screamed danger, and he casually changed course, pretending to be interested in a nearby statue. "Captain Steele," Dr. Chen greeted the newcomer with a smile. "I thought I gave you the slip this time." The man, Captain Steele, chuckled as he sat down beside her. "You know I can't let you wander around unprotected, especially not with our alien friends still at large." Zarak's ears perked up at the mention of himself. He focused his enhanced hearing on their conversation, eager for any intelligence he could gather. "Any progress on tracking him down?" Dr. Chen asked, her voice low. Steele shook his head. "Nothing concrete. This assassin is good, really good, but we got a few tricks up our sleeves that might surprise him." Dr. Chen nodded, her expression turning serious. "We can't let him interfere with the project, Marcus. We're too close to a breakthrough. If we succeed—" "I know," Steele interrupted gently. "It changes everything. For all of us." As the two continued their conversation, Zarak's mind raced. The level of security surrounding Dr. Chen was unlike anything he had encountered before, and the way they spoke of her research, with a mixture of hope and trepidation, only deepened the mystery. Suddenly, an alarm blared from Dr. Chen's datapad. Her eyes widened as she read the display. "We need to get back to the lab now." Without another word, Chen and Steele hurried away, leaving Zarak alone with his thoughts. He had come so close to his target, yet he found himself hesitating. For the first time in his long career, he felt a need to understand the bigger picture before making his move. As night fell, Zarak made a decision. He needed more information, and he knew just where to get it. Slipping away from the crowded streets, the assassin made his way to the outskirts of the city. There, hidden beneath an abandoned warehouse, he had established a temporary base of operations. Shedding his human disguise, Zarak activated his ship's advanced computer systems. If he couldn't get close to Dr. Chen physically, perhaps he could breach her defenses digitally. His fingers flew over the holographic interface as he initiated a deep scan of New Beijing's data networks. Hours passed as Zarak sifted through terabytes of encrypted information. The human cybersecurity was impressive, but not impenetrable to his advanced alien technology. Bit by bit, fragments of Dr. Chen's research began to come into focus. What Zarak discovered shook him to his core. Dr. Chen wasn't just working on some trivial human advancement. Her research involved manipulation of dark energy on a scale that even the most advanced galactic civilizations had only theorized about. If successful, her work could revolutionize space travel, energy production, and even the nature of reality itself. The implications were staggering. No wonder his mysterious client wanted Dr. Chen eliminated. With this technology, humanity could leap forward centuries in development, becoming a major player on the galactic stage virtually overnight. As Zarak pondered this new information, a new alert flashed across his screen. His intrusion had been detected, and New Beijing's cybersecurity forces were closing in fast. The assassin had only moments to sever the connection before his location would be compromised. With a frustrated growl, Zarak shut down the link. He had gained valuable intelligence, but at the cost of revealing his technological capabilities to the humans. They would be even more on guard now, making his mission that much more difficult. As he prepared to return to the city, Zarak found himself in an unfamiliar state of mind. For the first time in centuries, he was unsure of his next move. The contract demanded Dr. Chen's elimination, but his own curiosity and growing respect for human ingenuity gave him pause. These humans, whom he had dismissed as primitive just days ago, were on the verge of a discovery that could reshape the galaxy. And Dr. Ilara Chen was at the heart of it all. Zarak realized that his actions in the coming days would have consequences far beyond a simple assassination contract. As the first light of dawn broke over New Beijing once more, Zarak made his decision. He would continue his mission, but not blindly. He needed to understand the full scope of Dr. Chen's work and the true motives of his mysterious client before he acted. The hunt would continue, but the rules had changed. Zarak, the galaxy's deadliest assassin, found himself not just stalking his prey, but questioning the very nature of his mission. As he melted back into the awakening city, one thought echoed in his mind. These humans were far more than they appeared, and underestimating them could be the last mistake he ever made. The hunt intensifies. The following week saw Zarak pushing the limits of his considerable skills. New Beijing had become a chessboard, with the alien assassin and the human security forces locked in a deadly game of move and countermove. Every attempt Zarak made to get close to Dr. Chen was met with increasingly sophisticated resistance. On a rain-soaked evening, Zarak perched atop a neighboring skyscraper, his enhanced vision piercing the gloom to observe Dr. Chen's laboratory. The security measures had been tripled since his cyber intrusion. Armored hover drones patrolled the perimeter, their sensors sweeping for any sign of unauthorized activity. Energy barriers shimmered faintly, creating an impenetrable shield around the building. Zarak grudgingly admitted a growing respect for Captain Marcus Steele. The human security chief had proven to be a worthy adversary, anticipating the assassin's moves with uncanny accuracy. It was as if Steele could think like an alien, adapting his strategies to counter even Zarak's most advanced techniques. As lightning split the sky, illuminating the city in stark relief, Zarak made his move. He activated his phase shift technology, a device that allowed him to briefly exist out of sync with normal space-time. In theory, it should allow him to pass through the energy barriers undetected. With a deep breath, Zarak leaped from his perch, his body shimmering as the phase shift engaged. For a moment, it seemed to work. He passed through the outer layer of security like a ghost. But as he approached the building itself, alarms blared to life. The humans had somehow detected his presence. Cursing under his breath, Zarak quickly changed tactics. He dropped the phase shift, relying instead on his adaptive camouflage to blend with the building's exterior. Security drones converged on his last known position, their weapons humming with deadly energy. "Attention, unidentified intruder," a familiar voice boomed from hidden speakers. "Captain Steele, you are surrounded. Surrender now, or we will use lethal force." Zarak's mind raced. How had they detected him? His phase shift technology was beyond anything humans should have been able to counter. Unless a shocking realization dawned on the assassin. Dr. Chen's research into dark energy manipulation. Could the humans have already developed practical applications from her work? The implications were staggering. With no time to ponder further, Zarak made a split-second decision. He triggered his emergency teleport beacon, a last resort measure that would transport him back to his hidden base. As energy weapons fired from all directions, Zarak's form shimmered and vanished, leaving behind only scorch marks on the building's facade. Back in the safety of his base, Zarak slumped against a wall, his breathing ragged. Never in his centuries-long career had he been so thoroughly outmaneuvered. These humans, with their rapidly advancing technology and unpredictable strategies, were proving to be far more than he had bargained for. As the adrenaline of the close call faded, Zarak found his thoughts drifting to Dr. Chen herself. In all his observations, he had seen a woman driven by a genuine desire to push the boundaries of science, to elevate her entire species. It was admirable in a way he had never considered before. Shaking off such dangerous thoughts, Zarak turned to his ship's computer. If he couldn't get to Dr. Chen directly, perhaps he could uncover more about her work through other means. He began a deep dive into New Beijing's scientific community, searching for any colleagues or rivals who might have insight into Chen's research. Hours of meticulous searching finally yielded a promising lead. Dr. Amit Patel, a former colleague of Chen's, now worked at a rival research institution across the city. According to personnel files Zarak had discreetly accessed, there had been a falling out between the two scientists over the ethical implications of their work. This, Zarak realized, could be his way in. If he could get to Dr. Patel, perhaps he could finally uncover the full scope of Chen's research and why it warranted his contract in the first place. The next day found Zarak, once again disguised as a nondescript human, making his way through the bustling halls of the rival research facility. His forged credentials had passed inspection, granting him access to the building's lower security areas. Now he just had to locate Dr. Patel without arousing suspicion. As luck would have it, Zarak rounded a corner to find his target emerging from a laboratory, engrossed in a datapad. The assassin took a moment to observe Dr. Patel, a short, bespectacled man with a perpetual furrow in his brow. This human didn't exude the same commanding presence as Dr. Chen, but there was no mistaking the intelligence in his eyes. Zarak made his approach, adopting the slightly nervous demeanor of a junior researcher. "Dr. Patel," he called out, pitching his voice higher than normal. "Do you have a moment? I had some questions about your latest paper on quantum entanglement." Patel looked up, a flicker of annoyance crossing his face, before being replaced by academic interest. "Of course, always happy to discuss my work. Though I'm afraid I don't recognize you, Mr. Zhang." Zarak supplied smoothly. "Li Zhang. I'm new to the department." As they walked and talked, Zarak carefully steered the conversation towards Dr. Chen and her research. At the mention of his former colleague, Patel's demeanor changed noticeably. His words became clipped, his body language tense. "Ilara's work," Patel said, a mix of admiration and bitterness in his voice. "Brilliant, of course. Always was. But she's playing with fire, manipulating forces we barely understand." Zarak pressed gently. "Surely the potential benefits outweigh the risks." Patel stopped walking, turning to face the disguised assassin with a haunted look in his eyes. "You don't understand. What Ilara's working on, it could revolutionize everything. Clean, limitless energy, faster than light travel, even manipulation of the fabric of space-time itself. But in the wrong hands." The scientist trailed off, lost in thought. Zarak waited patiently, sensing he was on the verge of a crucial revelation. Finally, Patel seemed to come to a decision. He glanced around furtively before leaning in close. "Listen, if you're really interested in this, meet me tonight at the Neon Dragon Bar. 10 p.m. I'll tell you everything I know about Ilara's project. But be careful who you trust. There are powerful forces at work here." With that cryptic warning, Patel hurried away, leaving Zarak standing alone in the hallway. The assassin's mind whirled with the implications of what he'd learned. Dr. Chen's research was even more groundbreaking than he'd realized. No wonder his mysterious client wanted her eliminated. As Zarak left the research facility, his comm unit chimed softly, a message from his client, demanding an update on his progress. The assassin's 4 fingers hovered over the reply button, hesitating for the first time in his long career. The truth was, Zarak wasn't sure what to report. His mission to eliminate Dr. Chen had evolved into something far more complex. The more he learned about her work and its potential impact on the galaxy, the more he questioned the motives behind his contract. As the sun began to set over New Beijing, casting the city in a golden glow, Zarak made his decision. He would meet with Dr. Patel tonight and learn the full truth about Dr. Chen's research. Only then could he decide his next move. The hunt had indeed intensified, but Zarak was no longer certain of his role. Was he the predator, or merely a pawn in a much larger game? As he melted into the evening crowd, the galaxy's deadliest assassin found himself grappling with something entirely new: doubt. Turning Point. The neon dragon lived up to its name, a garish splash of holographic scales and flickering fire against the night sky of New Beijing. Zarak, still in his human disguise, pushed through the crowded bar, his enhanced senses on high alert for any sign of a trap. He found Dr. Patel hunched over a drink in a dimly lit corner, nervously glancing at the door every few seconds. "Dr. Patel," Zarak greeted, sliding into the seat across from the scientist. "I appreciate you meeting me." Patel's eyes darted around the room before settling on Zarak. "Mr. Zhang, I wasn't sure you'd come. Listen, before we begin, I need to know, who do you really work for?" Zarak tensed, his hand inching towards the concealed weapon at his side. Had his cover been blown? But Patel's next words caught him off guard. "Are you with the government? Corporate espionage?" Because I swear, I had no idea how Faralora would take our research when we started. Realizing that Patel's paranoia might work to his advantage, Zarak leaned in close. "Let's just say I represent parties very interested in Dr. Chen's work. Now, tell me everything." For the next hour, Patel poured out a story that left even the seasoned assassin reeling. The project had started as a theoretical exploration of dark energy manipulation, but under Dr. Chen's brilliant guidance, it had evolved into something far more. They were on the verge of creating a device that could tap into the fundamental forces of the universe itself. "Imagine," Patel said, his eyes gleaming with a mixture of awe and fear, "unlimited clean energy. The ability to reshape matter at will, to fold space and time like paper. It could end scarcity, revolutionize space travel, maybe even achieve immortality. But in the wrong hands, it could be the ultimate weapon." Zarak finished, the full implications dawning on him. Patel nodded grimly. "That's why I left. The potential for misuse was too great. But Ilara, she believes she can control it, use it for the betterment of humanity. She doesn't realize the forces she's dealing with." As Patel continued to divulge the technical details of the project, Zarak's mind raced. The scale of Dr. Chen's work was beyond anything he had imagined. If successful, it would indeed shift the balance of power in the galaxy, and potentially put humanity at its center. Suddenly, Patel froze mid-sentence, his eyes fixed on something over Zarak's shoulder. "Oh no," he whispered. "They found me." Zarak turned to see a group of men in nondescript suits entering the bar, their movements too coordinated to be casual patrons. His instincts screamed danger. "We need to leave now," Zarak said, grabbing Patel's arm. But as they stood, the scientist stumbled, knocking over his drink. The crash drew the attention of the newcomers, and in an instant, the situation exploded into chaos. Energy weapons materialized in the hands of the suited men, sending panicked bargoers scrambling for cover. Zarak's combat training kicked in. He flipped the heavy wooden table, providing momentary cover as he assessed their options. "Stay down," he ordered Patel, before springing into action. Zarak moved with inhuman speed and grace, his disguise flickering as he pushed his adaptive camouflage to its limits. He disarmed the first attacker with a lightning-fast strike, using the man's own weapon to stun two more. But these were no ordinary thugs. Their tactics and technology spoke of advanced training and backing. As Zarak fought, he caught glimpses of insignias on their gear, not government or corporate, but something else. Something that tugged at the edges of his memory. A stray energy blast grazed Zarek's arm, burning through his disguise and revealing a patch of his true alien skin. He heard Patil's sharp intake of breath behind him, but had no time to deal with the scientist's shock. They needed to escape, and fast. Zarak spotted a service entrance behind the bar. "This way," he shouted, grabbing Patil and making a break for it. They burst out into a narrow alley, the sounds of pursuit close behind. As they ran through the maze-like backstreets of New Beijing, Zarek's mind whirled. Who were these attackers? They weren't Captain Steele's security forces, that much was clear. A third player had entered the game, and the stakes had just gotten much higher. Suddenly, a familiar voice cut through the chaos. "This way. Hurry." Zarak skidded to a halt, pushing Patil behind him protectively. There at the end of the alley stood Dr. Ilara Chen herself, gesturing urgently towards a waiting hover vehicle. For a moment, Zarak hesitated. Every instinct honed over centuries of assassin work screamed that this was a trap. But as the sounds of their pursuers grew closer, he realized they had no choice. "Move," Zarak ordered, shoving Patil towards the vehicle. They piled in, and Dr. Chen gunned the engine, sending them shooting up into the sky traffic of New Beijing. As they weaved through the aerial lanes, narrowly avoiding collisions, Zarak turned to Dr. Chen. "I assume you know who I am." Chen's eyes flicked to him, a mix of emotions playing across her face. "The alien assassin sent to kill me. Yes, I'm aware. Just as unsure you now know the true nature of my work." "Then why help us escape?" Zarak demanded. "Because," Chen said grimly, "the ones chasing you are the real threat. To me, to my research, and to the entire human race. And I suspect they're the ones who hired you in the first place." As the realization sank in, Zarak felt the ground shift beneath him once again. He had been played, manipulated into nearly destroying humanity's best hope for advancement. The true enemy was still out there, and they were closing in fast. "We're headed to a secure location," Chen continued. "Captain Steele is meeting us there. It's time you learn the whole truth, assassin. And then you need to decide whose side you're really on." As their vehicle disappeared into the glittering skyline of New Beijing, Zarak knew he had reached a turning point. The contract that had brought him to Earth now seemed trivial in the face of the larger conflict unfolding around him. For the first time in his long, bloody career, the galaxy's deadliest assassin found himself contemplating something he never thought possible, becoming a protector instead of a killer. The chase had evolved into something far greater than a simple hunt. It had become a battle for the future of humanity, and perhaps the entire galaxy. And Zarak, the alien assassin who had come to end Dr. Chen's work, now found himself uniquely positioned to help save it. As they raced towards their unknown destination, Zarak made a decision that would change the course of his life forever. Whatever the truth turned out to be, whatever enemies they faced, he would see this through to the end. The hunt was over. Now, the real fight was about to begin. Humanity triumphant. The secure location turned out to be an underground bunker on the outskirts of New Beijing, its existence masked by layers of advanced cloaking technology. As Dr. Chen's hover vehicle descended into a hidden hangar, Zarak marveled at the sophistication of the human defenses. They had come so far in such a short time. Inside, they were met by Captain Marcus Steele, his face a mask of tension and barely contained energy. His eyes narrowed at the sight of Zarak, hand instinctively moving towards his weapon. "At ease, Marcus," Dr. Chen said, stepping between them. "He's with us now." Steele's jaw clenched, but he nodded curtly. "We don't have much time. They're mobilizing for a full-scale assault." As they moved deeper into the facility, Zarak's enhanced senses took in every detail. The bunker hummed with energy, its walls lined with technology that rivaled anything he had seen in his galactic travels. At the heart of it all stood a massive device, pulsing with an otherworldly glow. The Nexus, Dr. Chen said, following Zarek's gaze. The culmination of my life's work. With it, we can harness the fundamental forces of the universe itself. Zarak turned to her, his four eyes blinking in rapid succession. You said you would tell me the whole truth. Who are we really fighting against? Chen exchanged a look with Steele before answering. We call them the Confluence, an ancient, secret society that has manipulated galactic events from the shadows for millennia. They've kept humanity contained, stunting our growth while exploiting our potential. But why? Zarak asked, though a sinking feeling in his gut told him he already knew the answer. Because they fear us, Steele said, his voice hard. Humanity's capacity for innovation, our adaptability, our sheer stubborn will to survive and thrive. It terrifies them. The Nexus is the key to breaking free from their control, to taking our rightful place among the stars. Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the facility. Steele rushed to a nearby console, his fingers flying over the controls. They're here. Multiple ships entering the atmosphere. Ground forces converging on our location. Dr. Chen turned to Zarak, her eyes blazing with determination. Now you have a choice, assassin. Stand with us to defend humanity's future, or stand aside and watch as the Confluence enslaves yet another species. For a moment, Zarak was silent, centuries of ingrained loyalty to his contracts warring with the newfound respect he had developed for these humans. In the end, the decision was easier than he expected. I stand with humanity, Zarak said, drawing his weapons. What's the plan? The next hours were a blur of frantic preparation and intense combat. The Confluence forces attacked with a ferocity that would have overwhelmed any normal defense. But this was no ordinary battle. Zarak found himself fighting alongside humans, their combined strengths creating a formidable team. Captain Steele's tactical genius complemented Zarak's centuries of combat experience. Together, they held the line against waves of advanced combat drones and genetically engineered shock troops. Dr. Chen and her team worked tirelessly to bring the Nexus online, the device's power growing with each passing minute. But as they neared completion, the Confluence unleashed their ultimate weapon, a massive energy cannon capable of reducing the entire facility to atoms. We need more time. Chen shouted over the din of battle, her hands flying over the Nexus controls. Zarak made a split-second decision. I'll buy you that time, he said, turning to Steele. Keep her safe. Before anyone could protest, Zarak activated his phase shift technology and charged towards the enemy lines. He moved like a ghost through their ranks, his deadly precision amplified by the experimental tech. But even his incredible skills had limits, and he knew this was likely a one-way mission. As Zarak fought, he reflected on the strange turn his life had taken. He, an alien assassin, was now willing to sacrifice everything for a species he had once dismissed as primitive. Perhaps this, he realized, was the true power of humanity, their ability to inspire loyalty and hope even in the most unlikely allies. Just as Zarak's strength began to falter, the air around them shifted. A wave of energy pulsed out from the bunker, washing over friend and foe alike. For a moment, everything seemed to freeze. Then, reality itself began to warp. The Confluence weapons flickered and died, their ships plummeting from the sky. The very fabric of space-time bent to humanity's will. Dr. Chen's voice echoed across the battlefield, filled with triumph and awe. The Nexus is online. We've done it. As the dust settled, Zarak limped back to the bunker, his body battered but his spirit soaring. He found Chen, Steele, and the others gathered around the Nexus, its glow now a soft, comforting light. What happens now? Zarak asked, looking from face to face. Dr. Chen smiled, the weight of years lifting from her shoulders. Now we rebuild. We explore. We take our place in the galaxy, not as conquerors, but as innovators and peacekeepers. The Confluence's reign of shadow is over. In the days that followed, news of humanity's victory spread across the stars. The confluence's grip on power crumbled as species after species rose up, inspired by Earth's example. A new era of galactic cooperation dawned, with humanity at its heart. As for Zarak, he found himself in an unexpected role. Ambassador between humanity and the myriad alien races now clamoring for alliance. His unique perspective and newfound respect for human potential made him the perfect bridge between worlds. One evening, as he stood on a balcony overlooking the glittering expanse of New Beijing, now a shining beacon of hope for the galaxy, Zarak reflected on his journey. He had come to Earth as a harbinger of death, only to find himself reborn as a protector of life. Dr. Chen joined him, her eyes filled with the same wonder that had driven her to unlock the secrets of the universe. "Do you ever regret it?" she asked. "Choosing our side?" Zarak turned to her, a smile playing at the edges of his alien features. "Never," he said. "You humans have a saying. The best stories are the ones that surprise even their authors. I came here expecting to write your ending, but instead, you've helped me start a new chapter." As they looked out at the city below, teeming with life and possibility, Zarak felt a sense of peace he had never known in all his centuries of existence. Humanity had not just survived, they had triumphed, reshaping the very foundations of the galaxy. And he, Zarak, once the most feared assassin in the cosmos, was proud to stand beside them as they took their first steps into a brighter, boundless future. The hunt that had brought him to Earth was long over, but the greatest adventure was just beginning. In the end, the warning given to Zarak upon his arrival had proven prophetic, though not in the way anyone had expected. Humanity hadn't run. They had stood their ground, fought back, and in doing so, they had changed everything. The galaxy would never be the same, and neither would Zarak. And for that, he was eternally grateful.